So with the recent announcement of Wildcats Revenge, it's got a lot of people talking about Hershey Park, and most people are just talking about the new ride and saying how it's a great addition that'll round out the park and move crowds to that section. And like, yeah, we get an RMC and it's good for the park. Big surprise. That's not what this video is going to be about because yeah, well, this ride looks great. It's another RMC. We kind of know what to expect at this point with these rides. Great airtime packed ride with fun inversions that's smooth and re-rideable. You can apply that to basically every RMC except Outlaw Run because that thing isn't even close to smooth. No, what I want to talk about today is Hershey Park as a whole because with the addition of an RMC, I can confidently now say that Hershey Park will be the best park in America. Okay, let me explain because this is going to get a lot of the Cedar Point fanboys out there mad with their pitchforks. Now, for the sake of the video, we're going to use Cedar Point as a reference for the current best park in North America because that's what a lot of enthusiasts think right now. Me personally, I think it's Islands of Adventure, but I also have like a lot of Disney and Universal buys, so I don't think I can really fairly rank them. So I'll just say that Cedar Point is the best just for the sake of comparison. Now, there's a lot of things that Cedar Point does right. It has an incredible coaster lineup, a great collection of supporting rides, a really nice on-site hotel, and a whole beach to it. These are all amazing. Hershey Park just does it all better. Let's start with coaster lineups. Now, obviously, Steel Vengeance beats out anything at Hershey. I don't even think Wildcats Revenge will come close to that. Cedar Point does have the best coaster out of both parks, and the second also with Maverick. But for probably every other matchup, Hershey wins. We'll sacrifice Sky Rush and Wildcats Revenge against Maverick and Steve, because even though those are both the top two rides at both parks, Cedar Point washes both. So the highs at Cedar Point are slightly higher. That doesn't mean Sky Rush and Wildcats Revenge aren't good. Well, actually, we don't know Wildcats Revenge, but like you can assume a baseline of quality for any RMC, so I'd assume it's good. But I love Sky Rush, and it's literally one spot behind Maverick for me in my top 5, so saying that Cedar Point washes might even have been a stretch. But again, we'll let Cedar Point have the W. Hershey kind of smacks him up for like every other matchup. I'm sorry, but I'm taking Canobie over Millennium Force. It just does more with the layout, and even though it's not my favorite hyper, I would still take it over the Overbank Generator. I haven't been on Stormrunner, but especially now with the Dragster launch being redone, I can almost guarantee that Stormrunner is better. Like Cedar Point is actually throwing. I don't know why they're getting friggin' Zamperla for this thing. The ride will never be the same. The launch won't be nearly as intense, and for a ride that's main element is the launch, that's not exactly a good thing. Stormrunner still has the hydraulic launch, and it has an actual layout afterwards. It doesn't end after the top head, it keeps going, and it's actually a pretty cool looking layout too. Raptor, Great Bear, another easy round for Hershey. I know this might be controversial, but I didn't really think Raptor was all that. These inverts are kind of all starting to feel similar, and Raptor just kind of feels like a worse version of Montu. Like you kind of get the same thing. They're both compact layouts with those Titan versions that keeps winding in and around itself. Montu just does it better. Great Bear is a terrain coaster. It has great guest interaction, an actual unique layout, feet choppers galore, and even though it only has 4 inversions, they all pop. Another W for Hershey. Fahrenheit versus Valraven. Really, what else do I need to say? Cedar Point takes the L again. Fahrenheit just has a better layout, better pacing, a vertical lift, and just overall better elements. The only thing Valraven has over Fahrenheit is the drop, which, well, yeah, is really fun. That doesn't mean Fahrenheit has a bad drop either. It goes beyond vertical, which for some people might even be better. It's no competition on this one. Hershey just takes the cake. And again, with Comet versus Blue Streak, like I don't even need to explain this one. Comet is just way better. Another one I don't need to explain is Laugh Track versus the new Boardwalk Spinner. Same ride, one has theming, one does not. Now Cedar Point does have a couple coasters that Hershey doesn't really have an answer to, like Gatekeeper and Magnum, but likewise Hershey has rides that Cedar Point has no comparison to, like Jolly Rancher Remix. Now, yeah, Cedar Point does have more solid coasters, but if we're really putting them head to head, Hershey's quality beats out Cedar Point's. So if you're strictly looking for quality rides, Hershey wins. Now, yeah, obviously, if you want as many good coasters jammed into one park as possible, then Cedar Point is your spot. But if you want as many great coasters jammed into one park, then it's Hershey. There's just not as many coasters. But I get it if you still think Cedar Point has a better coaster lineup, so for argument's sake, let's say that's better. Hershey Park is still the better park for so many other reasons. Let's start with food, because it's a park literally named after a food company. Now, there's some pretty high quality restaurants at this park, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. I'd say in terms of like real lunch and dinner type food, Cedar Point and Hershey Park are on par. They're both slightly above average theme park food with some good sit down restaurants that are very above average. But obviously for a chocolate theme park, this park just walks all over competition when it comes to desserts. I mean, just look at these shakes. They just look straight out of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. There's Reese's funnel cakes, there's chocolate peanut butter cake in a jar, there's whatever these things are, there's dipped cookie dough. They have pretty much any dessert you could think of. Cedar Point has like funnel cake. Damn, bro, that's crazy. So obviously Hershey wins in that department. Then there's of course the other rides in the park. Both have their classics, the stuff you'd expect for any theme park. They got their Ferris wheels, their carousels, their teacups, their skylines. For those, that's equally matched. Where Hershey shines is their larger scale flat rides. They have Reese's Cup Fusion, a shooting dark ride themed candy. They have Hershey's Triple Tower, 3 different candy themed drop towers all next to each other. They have the legendary Kissing Tower and whatever this thing is. Now, Cedar Point's flat rides aren't bad either. They have Windseeker, Maxer, and Skyhawk, which are all really solid rides. rides, but they're all experiences you can find at other Cedar Fair parks, and also that exact same model with the exact same name. Good rides, but just not unique to this park, and if we're really crowning one the best park in all of the US, it's gotta be different. However, those two reasons are insignificant compared to the last one. The main reason that Hershey is better than Cedar Point has nothing to do with rides or food or theming. The reason is that Hershey has way better park atmosphere. This is one charming ass park, and nothing you can add to Cedar Point or any other park is gonna take that away from a Hershey. Yeah, you have your modern grand spectacles like Chocolate Town and the Canobie entrance, but once you get into the park, you really start to notice how nice this park is. It's not a huge sprawling boss battle like Cedar Point. You're not rushing to get from one ride across to the friggin' mile-long other ride in the other end of the peninsula. You're not competing with everyone else in the park to maybe, just maybe, fit in the big four like you are at Cedar Point. Hershey feels more quaint. It's a family park first and foremost that happens to have big thrills, which is exactly the type of atmosphere you want to create. This is especially prevalent in the Hollow, where all the rides are stacked together, winding over and under each other, built around this lake that runs through the park. It's just a great, cozy environment, seeing everything running all at once. Cedar Point has glimpses of this, but since they have so much land, most of the rides are pretty far apart. And to some people, they might like that. They might like the more spacious fields with big ride entrances. But each ride kind of seems isolated from one another. It doesn't build a park atmosphere. And for me, I kind of just like Hershey's interconnectedness. It makes it feel more communal. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but if you went to the park, you would definitely feel it. Hershey also has a couple of other things Cedar Point doesn't really have a comparison for, like Hershey's Chocolate World that has an entire dark ride in it that shows you how to create chocolate. There's also Zoo America, which I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it looks to be some sort of walkthrough zoo type thing. If that's your thing, then go for it, but I usually just stick to the coasters. Hershey's Water Park is also baked into the park towards the back. It's not like a separately ticketed thing like Cedar Point's water park. There's also just the Hershey theme. Like, you gotta admit, having all these rides and buildings and walk around characters themed to these famous candy bars is pretty unique. And the merch actually goes crazy. Like, you know, this stuff is fire. So overall, Hershey has the better ride lineup, the better park atmosphere, the better food, and a bunch of other little trinkets that Cedar Point doesn't have. If you judge strictly on coaster lineup, then you may still think Cedar Point is better, but even then, depending on how good Wildcats Revenge is, Hershey might top it. But that's just what I think. What about you guys? Let me know what you think if Hershey passed Cedar Point, and if not, do you think any park ever will? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.